I really like the new Sony XB33 because the Sony XB33 sounds significantly better than its predecessor, the Sony XB32. Specifically, the Sony XB33 has much better instrument separation and a much wider soundstage. But naturally, people want to know how the XB33 stacks up to the JBL Charge 4 and the JBL Pulse 4. And ultimately, each of these speakers outperform every one of these other speakers in one specific category. So, depending on your needs, one is going to be better than the other. Now, price-wise, the XB33 has a retail price of $150. But when it comes to JBL speakers, things aren't as simple. A few months ago, JBL increased the price on a lot of their speakers, but they routinely go on sale to make it look like you're getting a deal. The Charge 4 has a retail price of $180, but it's routinely on sale for $130. But it used to retail for $150. And the Pulse 4 has a retail price of $250, but it's routinely on sale for around $200, which is what it used to retail for when it first came out. Personally, I feel that JBL's pricing and intentions here are a little questionable, but if you want to pick any of these speakers up, there'll be a link down below. Now, first off, let's go over the designs of these speakers. Both the XB33 and Charge 4 have mostly fabric-covered bodies, so either of these speakers are good candidates if you're looking for a speaker to constantly take on the go with you, because they both are fairly durable. And both the XB33 and Charge 4 are waterproof, so you don't have to worry about getting either of these speakers wet. Now, the Pulse 4 is also waterproof, but personally, I would be cautious with the Pulse 4 around water, because my first Pulse 4 died from water damage. So personally, I play it safe with my second Pulse 4 when it's around water. But overall, I do feel that the Pulse 4 is better left indoors because its acrylic body could get scratched very easily if you are too rough on this speaker. But something the Pulse 4 really has going for it is its light feature. The light feature on the Pulse 4 is truly impressive, and you've got a few unique lighting modes to choose from. If you're looking for a speaker to liven up your bedroom, then the Pulse 4 is the way to go. Now, the XB33 also has a light feature, and thanks to its new light-up transducers, this speaker also looks cool, but you can't deny that the Pulse 4 just looks cooler. Now, when it comes to tech specs, all three of these speakers charge via a USB-C port. So if you're an Android user, you can charge your speaker and phone with the same cable. But it's very important to point out that you can only use the USB-C port on all of these speakers to strictly charge the speaker. You can't use any of these USB-C ports as a wired connection, and you can't use any of these USB-C ports to charge your own devices. But when it comes to battery life, the Pulse 4 has an advertised battery life of 12 hours. But with the speaker set to 50% brightness and while it's playing at 80% volume, this speaker is good for around 7 hours of playback time. Now, the XB33 has an advertised battery life of 14 hours while in extra bass mode, and this speaker is also good for around 7 hours of playback time when it's set to 80% volume and with the light feature turned on. But if you need something with a really long battery life, then there's a Charge 4. The Charge 4 has an advertised battery life of 20 hours, but with the speaker set to 80% volume, the speaker is good for around 10 to 11 hours of playback time. So all of these speakers have decent real-world battery lives, but if you need something to go the long haul, then the Charge 4 is a good option. Now, even though, yeah, you can use the XB33 while in stamina mode to increase its battery life all the way up to 24 hours, personally, I'm not the biggest fan of stamina mode because it severely reduces the bass on the speaker, making it sound flat. Whereas with the Charge 4, you get that longer battery life but without having to sacrifice bass. Now, when it comes to Bluetooth connectivity, all three of these speakers can be connected to two devices at the same time, so you and a friend can both be DJ. But it's very important to point out that both of JBL's speakers are strictly using SBC, whereas the XB33 has support for a higher quality audio codecs like AAC and LDAC. And it's also very important to keep in mind that only the Charge 4 has an audio jack here, whereas these other two speakers don't. Now personally, I don't mind not having an audio jack, but I still feel that a speaker of this size should still have an audio jack just in case. And also keep in mind, the Pulse 4 is the only speaker here that doesn't have a USB-A output so that you can charge your own devices. But now, let's talk about listening to music with these speakers, because these speakers have very different speaker setups. Now, both the XB33 and Charge 4 are both 30-watt speakers, and the XB33 has new dual frontward firing transducers and dual passive radiators shooting out the sides. Whereas the Charge 4 also has dual passive radiators shooting out the sides, but it only has a single frontward firing transducer. And then there's the Pulse 4, which is a 20-watt speaker, and it has a single upward firing transducer and a downward firing passive radiator. And since this speaker has a single upward firing transducer, if you want to get the best sound out of it, you're better off using it indoors where this speaker's sound has a ceiling to bounce off of. But with all that being said, we're going to jump into the sound test. Now, all of these speakers are playing at max volume, and the XB33 is in extra bass mode.
Picking up the pieces that I lost in the lobby. I put you against the wall, you had us body to body. I can't help the way you make me feel, it's so hard to copy. Let's find common ground, meet me in a lost and found, yeah. Dark days turning into dark nights. I hit the strip and spend it all, I'm having hard times. I reminiscing at me looking through the archives. I seen a picture of you looking like a star shines. And you're bright, 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 like the lights on a fight night, night. Love hit me like a mic, mic, mic. You know I'ma get it right, right, right. So stay with me, run away with me. Need like a dope fiend, need dope. Need like a coke fiend, need coke. Even though your heart cold, ski slope. I really hope the song bringing me close.
Now, first off, I want to address the Pulse 4. Even though the Pulse 4 is the most expensive speaker here, if you decide to go with the Pulse 4, you're really paying for the light feature above all else. Now, don't get me wrong, the Pulse 4 sounds and performs decent, but the Pulse 4 performs more similarly to the JBL Flip 5 than the Charge 4. The Pulse 4 just doesn't get as loud or have as much bass as these other two speakers. So if you're really concerned about sound, then the real comparison here is between the Charge 4 and XB33. Now, the first thing that comes to mind when comparing the Charge 4 to the XB33 is that the Charge 4 sounds much brighter than the XB33. The Charge 4 puts a lot more emphasis on the mids than the XB33 does when it's in extra bass mode. When in extra bass mode, the XB33 sounds much warmer and its bass also hits a little harder than the bass on the Charge 4 does. But what really makes the XB33 stand out from the Charge 4 is its better instrument separation and soundstage. Whereas the Charge 4 can sound a little nasally at higher volumes and everything just sounds very close together. So if you're looking for the speaker here with the best sound quality, then the XB33 is the way to go. Because the XB33 does sound noticeably better than the Charge 4, but it also gets just as loud. And if you're someone that wants a more neutral or brighter sound signature similar to the one found on the Charge 4, then you can always just go into the XB33's app and adjust its bass, mids, and treble to your liking. But finally, let's address the speaker pairing protocols because all of these speakers have some type of fragmentation to look out for. Sony's newer speakers are now using Party Connect, meaning that you can only pair the XB33 to other Sony speakers using Party Connect, like an XB43, another XB33, or an XB23. And this also means that you can't pair an XB33 to any of Sony's older speakers using wireless party chain. Whereas the JBL Pulse 4 is using JBL's new Party Boost, meaning that you can only pair the Pulse 4 to other JBL speakers using Party Boost, like a JBL Boombox 2, a JBL Flip 5, or a JBL Pulse 4. And the JBL Charge 4 is using JBL Connect Plus, meaning that you can only pair it up to JBL's older speakers using JBL Connect Plus, like an original boombox, a JBL Extreme 2, a JBL Charge 3, a Charge 4, a Flip 4, or a JBL Pulse 3. So if you decide to pick up a JBL Charge 4 today, it's technically a last-gen speaker because this speaker won't pair to any of JBL's newer speakers using Party Boost. But with all that being said, all three of these speakers are great options for three very different people. The JBL Pulse 4 is an amazing looking speaker that's going to look great in your bedroom. But if you decide to go with this speaker, you're mainly paying for the light feature, and if you want to get the most out of it, you're better off using it indoors where its upward firing transducer has a ceiling to bounce off of. The Charge 4 is a really good option for someone who needs a speaker that's going to last them a long time on a single charge. If you're going camping, this is a good speaker to bring. But if you want the best sound quality, then the XB33 is the way to go. Forget the fact that the XB33 has an adjustable EQ unlike the Charge 4. What really makes the XB33 stand out here is its vastly improved soundstage and instrument separation. And if you really want to stretch out the battery life on the speaker, then you can always just use it while in stamina mode. But personally, out of all of these speakers, I do prefer to listen to the XB33. If you made it this far, I guess you enjoyed the video, so hit that like button and get subscribed. It helps out more than you realize. If you want to pick any of the products up mentioned in this video, those will be linked in the description down below, and you can also support the channel by checking out the merch store. But other than that, I'll catch you next time.